The candle. My grandmother told me never to let the candle go out. It's a simple white candle, passed down through generations. It's been burning in my home for 47 years. Last Tuesday, a power surge blew a fuse. The house went dark for 17 seconds. The candle went out, and in that silence, I heard the entire world take a sharp, sudden breath in. And I knew the candle wasn't a tradition. It was a warning. And we just failed it. The vigil candle. That's what we called it. It sat on the mantelpiece, its flame steady and eternal. The wax never dripped. The wick never shortened. It was just a fact of life, like gravity. We'd joke about it. Don't upset the candle, we'd say. We had no idea how right we were. The flame was a golden, tiny sun around which our reality orbited. After the flame died, the first thing I noticed was the silence. It wasn't an absence of sound. It was a thick silence. A listening silence. The air felt heavy, old. Then the smells started. The house began to smell of damp earth and ozone, like the air after a lightning strike hits too close. My cat, who had spent her whole life sleeping peacefully by the hearth, stood rigid in the center of the room, her fur on end, staring at a fixed point in the ceiling, emitting a continuous silent hiss. I relit the candle. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the match. The new flame caught, but it was wrong. It was a pale, sickly green, and it didn't flicker. It burned absolutely straight, like a painted line, and it cast no light. The room remained dark. The flame was now a thing that consumed light, rather than gave it. I tried to blow it out. It wouldn't extinguish. We had broken the contract. The new terms were not in our favor. The candle. The house is no longer my house. The geometry is softening. Hallways stretch slightly longer than they should. Doorways seem to shrink an inch every time I pass through them. The windows no longer show my backyard. They show a constant, twilight gray, an empty field under a dead sky. The candle's new light-eating flame is the only constant. It is a drain, a puncture wound in our world. And through it, the silence is pouring in. I found my grandmother's journal, hidden behind a loose brick in the fireplace. It wasn't a diary of recipes and memories. It was a manual, a logbook. The candle isn't ours. We are its. Our family are keepers. Our charge was not to keep a flame alive for sentiment. It was to keep a door closed. The flame was the lock, and we just opened it. The things outside aren't monsters. They are the natural state. Our world of light and sound and life is the aberration. A tiny, fragile bubble of something bright and loud in an infinite, silent, static dark. The candle wasn't a light. It was a shield. A do not enter sign. The green flame is an invitation. It is the porch light left on for the things that live in the quiet, endless places. They are coming home. I am the last keeper. The journal says if the flame ever changes, the only way to reset the lock is to add a new living wick. My hand is shaking as I write this. If this recording stops suddenly, you'll know I succeeded, or that I failed. Subscribe. Remember the light. Because the dark is so much bigger than you know. To reset the lock, the journal says a keeper must sacrifice their sight. They must hold their face over the green flame until their eyes are burned away, becoming the new, pure wick. Freedom means plunging myself into permanent darkness to keep a sliver of light alive for everyone else. The cost is my world, to save yours. They are at the windows now. Not shapes, just pressing. The silence is becoming a pressure, bending the glass inward. The green flame is burning black at its core. It is almost time. The journal's final instruction is clear. Do not hesitate. The price of looking is ownership. Look at a light source, a lamp, a screen. Appreciate its warmth, its noise. It is not a small thing. It is a miracle, a defiance, and it is so fragile. Good night. The empty room. Every house has a room that feels cold. A room you don't like to go in. Mine is the upstairs bathroom. It's always been cold, but last week I took a thermometer in there. It doesn't read cold. It reads nothing. The mercury doesn't drop. It disappears. The room isn't cold. It's null. And null is so much worse. It was the guest bathroom. Nobody used it. It just collected dust. You'd open the door and get a chill, so you just close it again. We blamed bad insulation. We were wrong. Insulation keeps heat in. This was different. This was an absence of temperature. An absence of everything. The first real test was with a digital audio recorder. I left it running in the room for an hour. When I played it back, the hour of recording was gone, replaced by a single perfect second of absolute digital silence. Not room tone, not static, zero. The file size was nothing. The room was eating information. I tried a photograph. The picture showed the room, but the mirror was just a gray rectangle. It wasn't reflecting. It was void. I threw a pen into the room. It didn't clatter on the tiles. It vanished the moment it crossed the threshold. I never heard it land. I stretched my hand through the doorway. The air felt like nothing. Not cold, not hot. It was a sensory void. My fingers tingled, then went numb, as if they were being unmade. I pulled my hand back. My watch had stopped. The second hand was frozen. The room wasn't a place. It was an eraser. The null space is expanding. The cold spot, the null spot, is now a foot out into the hallway. It's growing. Slowly, inexorably. It's consuming the hall carpet. The fibers aren't frayed or burned. They're just gone. It's not destroying things. It is returning them to a state of non-existence. It is the universe's default setting, and it is leaking into our created world. I did research. The previous owner of the house was a theoretical physicist. His notes, which I found in the basement, weren't about physics. They were about theology, about the nature of God as a creator, and the terrifying, empty potentiality that existed before creation. He called it the substrate. His final journal entry reads, "I have found a puncture, a pinhole back to the canvas. I must study it." He vanished 6 months later. There is no entity. There is only the absence. The null. The room is a tiny tear in the fabric of reality, a window back to the infinite, silent, meaningless, nothing that existed before something. It is not evil. It is indifferent. It is the ultimate truth of the universe, that everything we are, everything we know, is a temporary pattern etched onto a surface of endless, hungry void. And the void is patient. I am measuring the growth rate. It's accelerating. This isn't a ghost story. This is an existential warning. Subscribe, share this. If you have a room in your house that feels wrong, don't ignore it. Measure it, record it. Because if enough of these holes open up, the whole painting might just unravel. Freedom means sealing the hole. But how do you patch a hole in reality? The physicist notes suggest only one thing: a sacrifice of equivalent complexity. A human consciousness, a dense, complex pattern, might be enough to fool the null into thinking the hole is already filled. To save the world, I might have to offer it my mind. The null field is at my bedroom door. I can see the edge of it from my bed. The wall behind it is just gone, not damaged, uncreated. I'm writing this from my phone. The battery is draining faster near it. It consumes energy. It consumes information. It consumes meaning. I am the most complex thing left in this house. Is there a room in your home you avoid? A closet that feels empty? Don't open the door. You might not like what isn't there. Just let it be. Some doors shouldn't be opened, because sometimes what's on the other side is nothing, and nothing is the most powerful force in the universe. The elevator that arrived empty at 3:03. I swear to you, I never believed in this stuff. Ghosts, curses, urban legends, they were always just stories. But I live alone in an old high-rise on the east side, and something happened last week that I can't explain. It started with the elevator. The first descent. It was late, maybe 3 in the morning. I'd been up scrolling on my phone, unable to sleep. My apartment's on the 14th floor. Normally, I avoid taking the elevator at night-old cables. Clunky motor, the kind of sound that makes you wonder if you're about to plummet. But that night, I wanted a soda from the vending machine in the lobby. I hit the call button. The light flicked on, and the elevator dinged. Doors slid open. Empty. Or at least I thought it was. The smell hit me first like rust and cold basement air. The floor panel flickered, showing 303 instead of a floor number. No idea why. The buttons inside were all unlit, but the car was waiting. The ride. I stepped in, pressed lobby. The doors closed. That's when the lights in the car went out. Not dimmed. Out. I could still see faint reflections on the chrome wall, but the panel was dead. No buzzing motor, no cables whining. Just silence. Then, with a sharp jerk, the elevator began to move. Down. But the panel didn't show numbers, just 303 pulsing red, like a digital clock stuck on one moment. About 3 floors down, the car stopped. Doors opened. Nobody was there. The hallway lights outside were dim, like the bulbs had been dipped in oil. Everything stretched too far, like the corridor wasn't part of my building at all. And then something stepped in. I didn't see it fully, not at first. Just the shift of air, a distortion in the reflection. Like someone tall had entered, but the glass warped around them. I froze against the back wall, heartbeat pounding. The doors closed. The car kept moving down. The silence broke with whispering. Low, raspy, like 2 voices arguing under their breath. Couldn't understand a word. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text message. DONT look at him. My stomach dropped. I turned the phone face down, squeezing it tight, but I could feel something beside me. The shape, the presence, taller than me, breathing steady, almost deliberate. I swear I heard fingers brushing the strings of the emergency phone box, like someone testing a guitar. The car finally stopped. Ding. Doors slid open. We weren't in the lobby. We weren't even in the building. Concrete walls stretched into a tunnel, wet with dripping water. The smell of mold burned my nose. A single light swung overhead, barely illuminating the words scrawled on the far wall in black paint. Stay on your floor. The figure stepped out first. Long shadow. Unnatural gait, like joints bending wrong. My body wanted to follow, every muscle leaning forward, but my phone buzzed again. Stay inside. I jammed my thumb, lobby. Doors closed before the thing could turn back. The car jerked, rising with a violent shake. The return. When the doors opened again, I was in the real lobby. Fluorescent lights, vending machine humming. Clock above the desk read 3:04. Only a minute had passed. I stumbled out, gasping. The security guard looked up, confused. Said the elevators had been shut down for maintenance all night. He showed me the work order. They weren't even supposed to be running. I didn't argue. Just grabbed my soda, took the stairs up 14 flights, lungs burning. Now, every night since, the elevator panel outside my door lights up at exactly 3:03 in the morning, even if I don't touch it. Even if I'm asleep, it dings once, echoing through the hall. I don't go near it. Not anymore. But last night, I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing again. Another text. Don't make me ride alone. I deleted it immediately. But here's the part I can't stop thinking about this morning. When I left for work, the elevator doors were wide open. And sitting in the center of the car was my phone charger, the one I lost 3 days ago. So if you ever live in an old high-rise and the elevator dings at 3:03, do yourself a favor, take the stairs, because someone or something is waiting for company. Halfway dark stories that forbid sleep. I've been in my new apartment for a month, and I finally made peace with the fact that I'm never getting my security deposit back. But that's honestly the least of my worries. The real problem is the list of rules I found, the one the last tenant left for me. I thought it was some kind of elaborate prank. I was wrong. And now I have to follow every single rule perfectly, or the apartment gets angry. If you're the kind of person who likes stories that crawl under your skin and stay there, then you're in the right place. Go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell for more tales that find horror in the quiet little corners of life. Now, let me tell you what happened. It all started like any new chapter, really, with the overwhelming smell of cheap paint and the nice, satisfying echo of my own footsteps in an empty room. Apartment 4B. It wasn't much, but it was all mine. The rent was an absolute steal for the neighborhood, and the landlord, a stout guy named Mr. Henderson, seemed completely indifferent, which is the best kind of landlord you can ask for. I spent that first day in a haze of exhausted bliss, wrestling with flat-pack furniture and dreaming about the life I was going to build here. I was so optimistic. I was such a fool. The discovery happened on day 2. I was trying to get the kitchen in order, a cramped little space with questionable linoleum and countertops that had seen better days. I pulled open a sticky drawer under the silverware tray, fully expecting to find nothing but dust and maybe a fossilized crumb. Instead, I found a single sheet of paper folded into a tight little square. The paper itself felt old, aged to a pale yellow, and the edges were soft, like it had been folded and unfolded 1,000 times. The writing was a neat but slightly shaky cursive in a faded blue ink. It wasn't addressed to anyone. It just began. It was a list of rules. I actually chuckled. I'd heard of people getting prank letters from their friends when they move, but this felt different, more deliberate. I leaned against the counter, a smirk on my face, and started to read. "Welcome," it began, which seemed friendly enough. "I'm sorry I couldn't meet you. I had to leave in a hurry. This apartment is a good place, mostly. It's quiet, but it has quirks. You need to respect them. For your own sake, please, just do what the list says. Don't make the same mistakes I did." My smirk faltered. A little dramatic, sure. Still, I kept reading, my amusement starting to battle with a real sense of unease. Asterisk Rule 1. Do not leave any mirrors uncovered after midnight. Not the bathroom mirror, not the one on the closet door, not even a small makeup compact. It likes to see itself, but you don't want to see what it looks like when it does. Asterisk. Okay, that was genuinely creepy. A good opening for a prank. I could just picture the last tenant, maybe some theater student or a horror writer, laughing as they wrote this out. Asterisk Rule 2. The pantry door must be kept closed at all times. If you hear a tapping sound from inside, ignore it. It's not rats. We don't have rats. Just wait for the tapping to stop before you open it. Asterisk. I glanced over at the pantry door. It was old, wooden, painted a chipped mint green. It looked completely normal. I couldn't imagine anything more sinister than a box of expired Cheerios hiding in there. Asterisk Rule 3. The front door must be locked with the deadbolt at exactly 10:47 p.m. Not 10:46, not 10:48. Don't ask why. It gets impatient if you're late, and it gets suspicious if you're early. Asterisk. This was the one that sold me on it being a joke. The specificity was just brilliant. 10:47 p.m. It was so absurd. I could just see the prankster trying to pick the most random, arbitrary time they could think of. There were other rules. too something about not leaving wet towels on the floor and never, ever whistling in the hallway after dark. I folded the paper, slid it back in the drawer, and shook my head with a laugh. Some welcome, I muttered, and got back to unpacking. These warnings had to be about a weird landlord or a nosy neighbor. The apartment itself, it was just wood, plaster, and pipes. It couldn't get angry. That first night, I was boneless with exhaustion, but I finally fell into bed. The rules were the last thing on my mind. I'd been up until well after 1 in the morning, building a bookshelf. I remember stumbling to the bathroom, splashing water on my face, and staring at my own tired reflection in the uncovered mirror. I didn't see anything but my own haggard eyes staring back. I let out a little puff of air. See? Nothing. I shuffled back to my bedroom, which for now was just an air mattress on the floor. As I was about to kill the lamp, I remembered the rule about the lock. I checked my phone. 1:13? Way past 10:47. For a split second, I almost didn't bother. I mean, it's a 3-story walk-up, but old habits die hard. I dragged myself to the front door and threw the deadbolt. Close enough, I mumbled, and basically collapsed into sleep. I woke up a few hours later. The room was cold. A deep, unnatural cold that just sinks right into your bones. And there was a sound. A faint metallic scratching. C-case-cree, C-case-case crop. It was coming from the front door. My heart did a single, hard THUMP against my ribs. It sounded exactly like someone trying to pick the lock, but it was sloppy, angry. It sounded less like a key and more like a claw, just scraping furiously at the metal tumblers of the deadbolt. I lay there, completely frozen, listening to the desperate, rhythmic scratching. It went on for what felt like hours, then just stopped. Silence rushed back in. I told myself it was the building settling, a neighbor fumbling with their keys, the wind. I came up with a dozen rational explanations, but none of them felt right. None of them explained that vicious, impatient sound or the sudden, piercing cold that came with it. A little seed of doubt was planted, and in the dark of that apartment, it was already starting to sprout. A week went by, and the scratching didn't happen again. I started following the rules mostly. It felt stupid, like some weird superstition, but I couldn't shake the memory of that sound. I started covering the mirrors after midnight. I started checking my watch around 10:45 p.m. It was just easier to do it than to lie awake wondering. I was becoming a reluctant player in the apartment's strange game, but the rule about the pantry that one eye broke. It was a Tuesday night. I was making pasta and needed the colander I'd stored in there. As my hand closed around the doorknob, I heard it. Tap, 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 tap. It was soft, delicate, like a single fingernail tapping on the inside of the cheap wood. The rule flashed in my head. Ignore it. Wait for it to stop. But I'd had a horrible day. I was hungry, and I was just not in the mood. I was done being scared of noises in an old building. Oh, for God's sake, I said out loud to the empty kitchen. I grabbed the knob and yanked the door open. The tapping stopped. The pantry was just a pantry. Shelves with my food, and on the top shelf, a couple of dusty cans the last tenant had left behind. I felt a wave of relief, and then my face got hot with embarrassment. Scared of what, exactly? I grabbed my colander and was about to swing the door shut when I saw it. A new message, scrawled on the inside of the door in that same shaky blue ink. It hadn't been there before. I know it hadn't. My blood went ice cold. Asterisk rule number 7. You didn't listen. You were supposed to wait. Now you've let the hunger out. When the lights start to flicker, find a place to hide. Stay absolutely silent. And whatever you do, for the love of God, don't look at the corners of the ceiling. As my eyes scanned the last word, the overhead light in the kitchen flickered. Once, twice, And then, with a soft pop asterisk, it went out, plunging the room into darkness. The only light was the hazy orange glow from the streetlights outside, casting these long, twisted shadows across the floor. My breath caught in my throat. Hide. The word from the note was just screaming in my head. My legs felt like they were filled with cement, but pure animal panic took over. I scrambled away from the pantry, dropping the colander with a clatter that sounded like a gunshot, and dove under the small kitchen table. I curled up, pressing my face into the cold, grimy floor. And then I heard it. It wasn't a tap or a scratch. It was a wet, dragging sound. A soft, awful shuffling that started from the black void of the open pantry. It was the sound of something heavy and misshapen pulling itself into my kitchen. My heart was hammering so hard against my ribs, I was sure it could be heard. I squeezed my eyes shut, fighting the primal urge to look up, to scan the dark corners of the ceiling. Asterisk, why the corners? What the hell was in the corners? The shuffling got closer. Then a smell hit me thick and suffocating. It smelled like damp soil right after a thunderstorm, but mixed with something metallic and rotten, like old meat left out in the sun. My stomach churned. Something brushed against the leg of the table, maybe 2 feet from my head. I felt the wood vibrate. I bit down hard on my own hand to keep from whimpering, tasting salt and fear. I could hear its breathing now, a low, gurgling rattle, like air being forced through water. It was circling the table, slowly, patiently, hunting. I tried to make myself smaller, tried to control my ragged breathing, counting every second as it stretched into an agonizing eternity. Finally, the shuffling sound began to move away, dragging itself toward the living room. I didn't move. I stayed in a trembling heap under that table, too terrified to even breathe. I didn't uncurl myself until the first pale fingers of dawn crept through the window. The kitchen light flickered back on as if nothing had ever happened. I was alone, but I knew I wasn't. Not really. I don't live in apartment 4B anymore. I just exist in it. I'm a prisoner of its routines, a zookeeper for its secrets. I never saw what was shuffling in the dark that night, and I pray to God I never will. I follow the rules now, all of them. Without question, the mirrors are always covered. The pantry door is never opened. And every single night, I stand at the front door, my hand on the deadbolt, my eyes glued to the clock on my phone, just waiting for the numbers to change. 10:46. My breath catches. My palm is sweating against the cold metal. 10:47. Click. The previous tenant didn't just leave me a list of rules. He passed on a life sentence. I get it now. He didn't escape. He was let go. He found his replacement. And now I just wait. I wait for the day I get tired or sloppy, or maybe the day I can find someone new to take my place. Because this apartment is always hungry, and eventually it needs to be fed. Thanks for listening. If you made it this far, maybe share this with someone who enjoys the dark. And until next time, check your locks. You never know who or what is waiting for you to be late. The shadow apartment above mine. People think living alone is lonely. It isn't, at least not until you realize you aren't alone. I live on the top floor of a 6-story apartment building. I've been here for 3 years, and until a month ago, I would have sworn nothing existed above me but the roof. My ceiling is concrete. My upstairs neighbors are pigeons. Or so I thought. The first time I heard it, I thought it was just a dream. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, pacing above my bed at 2:40 in the morning. The sound was faint but wrong. It wasn't the light skitter of birds. It was the heavy thud of boots on wood. But there is no wood floor above me, just the roof. I sat up, listening. The pacing stopped. And then, from directly overhead, came 3 slow knocks. Not random, not wind, knocks. I didn't sleep that night. By the 3rd night, the knocking turned into dragging sounds. Something heavy scraped across the ceiling, moving room to room, always following me no matter where I sat. I called the landlord the next morning. I tried to laugh it off, but my voice cracked when I said, just checking. There's definitely no crawl space up there, right? Nobody lives above me? He sighed like I'd asked a dumb question. You're on the top floor, kid. No apartments above you. Roof sealed concrete. Been that way 50 years. I almost believed him. Almost, until I noticed the dust. It started appearing on my dresser, on my kitchen counters. Fine gray silt that looked like ash. I'd wipe it away, and it'd be back the next day. Once, I left a glass of water on the table overnight. In the morning, there was a gray smear on the inside of the glass, like something had dipped a finger into it. I thought about moving out. I really did. But when you work nights stocking shelves at a supermarket for minimum wage, moving out isn't an option. Instead, I tried to ignore it. That worked until the laughing started. Not loud, not even clear. Just a muffled chuckle, echoing faintly through the ceiling at 3 in the morning. A man's laugh, drawn out, slow, like someone telling himself a joke. I froze in bed, my skin prickling. And then I heard 2 sets of laughter. One low and gravelly, the other higher, almost childlike. Both of them chuckling together in the space above my ceiling that supposedly doesn't exist. The air smelled like dust and mold. 2 weeks ago, I tried something stupid. I climbed onto my counter and pressed my ear to the ceiling. At first, nothing. Then a faint tapping, like fingernails on the other side. I whispered, "Who's there?" Silence. Then, faint but clear, a whisper came back. "We're here because you are." I fell off the counter, slammed my head into the fridge. When I opened my eyes, dust was falling from the ceiling in slow drifts, as if something had moved directly overhead. That night, I dreamed of another apartment. The exact same layout as mine's same kitchen, same hall, same tiny bedroom, but upside down. The furniture was nailed to the ceiling. The lights swung from the floor. And in that apartment, directly beneath my bed, lay 3 people. Their bodies were stretched too long, their arms bent wrong, their faces smooth except for black slits where mouths should be. They didn't move, didn't breathe, but I could hear laughter bubbling from those slits. When I woke up, the smell of mold was so thick in my apartment it felt like drowning. Now, every night, it gets worse. The knocking has become pounding. Sometimes it shakes the light fixtures. The dust falls in thicker clumps. And the laughter is closer, clearer. It doesn't even sound muffled anymore. Last night, I walked into my kitchen and stopped cold. The ceiling above the table had bulged. Just slightly, but enough to see. Like something heavy was pressing down from the other side. And smeared across the bulge, in long gray streaks, were handprints. I bolted, spent the night sitting in my car in the parking lot. When I finally went back inside, the handprints were gone. But the air still smelled like mold, like breath trapped for too long in a sealed room. I've started blacking out. I'll wake up and find my furniture moved, my fridge open, gray handprints smeared across the walls. Yesterday, my downstairs neighbor banged on my door, furious. He said I'd been stumping and dragging furniture all night. Said it sounded like I was throwing things across the floor. But I wasn't home. I was working a night shift. I don't know how to stop it. I don't even know what it is. I've tried staying awake. I've tried sleeping with the lights on. I've tried burning sage, praying, even hammering nails into the ceiling like some makeshift cross. Nothing works. The only thing I haven't done is go up there. And I think that's what they want. Because this morning, when I stumbled into the kitchen, there was a square etched into the ceiling above my table. 4 neat lines pressed into the concrete like chalk. A door. The dust beneath it spelled a single word: climb. I hear them pacing now as I write this. Boots dragging, laughter bubbling. The ceiling bulges with each step. My lights flicker. The air is wet with mold. I don't know how much longer the concrete will hold. I don't know what happens when the door finally opens. But I do know one thing. When it does, whatever's been pacing above me isn't going to wait for me to climb. It's going to come down. The man who pretends to be me after midnight asterisk. The video starts abruptly. The image is shaky, dark, lit only by the phone screen. We see the upper half of a man's face, his eyes wide with terror. He's breathing heavily, his hands trembling slightly. He's hiding, crouched below a window. Okay. It's 11:58 p.m. My name is Alex. It doesn't matter where I live. If you're seeing this, it's probably too late for me anyway. This is night 26. 26 nights. Every single night, when the clock hits 12, he shows up. He looks exactly like me. He sounds just like me. And I know he wants to get inside. I don't even know why I'm filming this. Evidence, I guess. A warning. So if he gets in, someone will know what happened. So you'll know the man who looks like me, who might start living my life, isn't me. Look. He cautiously raises the phone, peeking it over the windowsill. The camera struggles to focus on the dark yard. A single, lonely streetlight stands at the end of the driveway. Under it, a figure is standing perfectly still. It's too far to see details, but the silhouette, the way it holds itself, it's identical to Alex's. There. See him? He's early tonight. He's never here before 11:59. Something's different. I can feel it. The camera stays on the figure. We see the time on Alex's phone tick to 11:59 p.m. Right on cue, the figure starts moving. It walks with a calm, steady gait, straight for the house. Alex's breathing hitches. He yanks the camera back down, plunging us back into the dim room. Let's get starting. Every night, the same walk, the same speed. He'll get to the porch, and then he'll just wait. The first night, I thought I was losing my mind. I woke up around 1, sure I'd heard something. I looked out the window and saw a guy standing on my lawn. I almost called the cops, but then he turned his head, and the moonlight hit his face. It was my face. I just froze. I told myself it was a dream, one of those hyper-real, terrifying nightmares. I didn't sleep the rest of the night, and when the sun came up, he was gone. I just forced myself to forget it. The second night, he was back, closer, standing right at the bottom of the porch steps. I remember watching him through the peephole, my heart pounding so hard, I thought it would break a rib. He was wearing the same clothes I wore to work that day. The gray suit, the blue tie, even the little coffee stain I thought no one could see. He had it, the exact same stain. He just stood there for an hour, didn't move a muscle, then turned and walked off into the dark. By the fifth night, I was barricading the door. I shoved the big armchair from the living room against it. That was the first night he tried the handle. I'll never forget that sound. It wasn't a frantic rattle. It was a slow, deliberate turn. Just a calm, patient test of the lock. He tried it once, then a second time, then he stopped. I spent the whole night with my back against the chair, holding a kitchen knife. I called the police that morning. They sent a car, and an officer walked around the house. He found nothing. No footprints in the soft dirt. Nothing. He gave me this look like I was some crank caller wasting his time. It just got worse. On night 10, he started whispering. Just a faint sound on the wind. My name. Alex, Alex, let me in, Alex. It sounded like my own voice, but broken. Like it was coming through a busted speaker. All staticky and wrong. Then a week ago, night 19, he changed his strategy. He used my mother's voice. I was huddled in here, just like now, and I heard her clear as day from the front porch. Alex, honey? It's me. Car trouble, my phone died. Can you let me in, sweetie? It's freezing out here. I felt my blood turn to ice. My mom lives 300 miles away. I called her, my hands shaking so bad I could barely hit the screen. She picked up on the second ring, sleepy, confused, and safe in her bed. Outside, the voice just kept begging. That was the first time I felt real terror. The kind that hollows you out. This thing wasn't just a copy. It knew things about me. It was learning. My life is falling apart. I can't sleep. How could I? I spend my nights huddled in the dark, just listening, waiting. I spend my days in a paranoid fog. I go to work and I feel like a ghost. Can't focus on anything. My boss pulled me aside yesterday. Said I look like hell, that my work's fallen off a cliff. He asked if everything was okay at all. What am I supposed to say? Oh, you know, the usual. A malevolent duplicate of me is trying to break into my house every night to steal my life. I'd be fired. Or committed. I'm so alone. I've stopped talking to my friends. I can't have them over. What would happen if they were here when the clock strikes 12? And I'm starting to doubt my own mind. I look in the mirror, and for a split second, I don't recognize the face. I see my reflection in a shop window, and I flinch. Is that me? Or is it him? Is he following me during the day now? I've started taking pictures of myself every hour on my phone, just so I have a time-stamped record that I am where I say I am. It's insane, I know, but it's the only thing keeping me grounded. I've tried everything. I've put salt on the windowsills, like I'm in some bad horror movie. I bought a crucifix, and I haven't been to church in 15 years. I've wasted hours online, falling down these rabbit holes of folklore. Doppelganger. In most of the old stories, they're an omen of death. To see your own double means your end is coming. But this doesn't feel like an omen. This feels predatory. It's not a spirit. It's a physical thing, and it is relentlessly trying to get into my home, my life. I even set up a camera on the porch to record him. The first night, it actually worked. I had footage. Grainy, black and white, but it was him. Walking up, standing there, trying the handle. I felt this rush of victory. Proof. The next morning, the memory card was blank. Corrupted. Unreadable. It's like the world itself is bending to keep this thing a secret. There's a sudden, sharp noise that makes Alex jump violently. The camera lurches. He slaps a hand over his mouth. The sound comes again. It's not the doorknob. It's not whispering. It's a light, rhythmic tapping. Alex's eyes dart around the room and land on the wall between the living room and the kitchen. No, 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 no. That's the kitchen window. The back of the house. He's never done that. He's always at the front door. It's always the same. Why is he breaking the pattern? He gets up slowly, staying low to the ground. The phone camera is our view as he creeps out of the living room and into the dark hall. The tapping continues, steady and patient. Tap, tap, tap. Alex holds the phone out as he rounds the corner into the kitchen. He ducks behind the central island, peeking over. The camera focuses on the kitchen window over the sink. Pressed against the glass is a face. His face. It's not a silhouette. It's perfectly clear in the moonlight. Every line, every pore. And it's smiling. The smile is the most horrible thing Alex has ever seen. It's too wide, a grotesque, unnatural stretch of his own lips. The eyes are cold, empty, and dead. The thing at the window slowly raises a hand. It's holding something. A phone. An exact copy of the one Alex is using. It tilts its screen toward the window. On the screen is a picture. It's a photo of Alex. He's asleep, slumped on the living room couch, his mouth hanging open. The photo was taken from just a few feet away. It was taken from inside the house. Asterisk. A choked, strangled sound rips from Alex's throat. The camera jolts as he stumbles back against the kitchen island. His mind is screaming. When was that taken? He hasn't slept on the couch in weeks, has he? The days, the nights, they're all a blur. Did he nod off for a minute? An hour? Was it already in the house while he slept? He can't breathe. He finally finds his voice, a raw, ragged scream. What are you? What do you want? The face at the window, the smiling copy, just watches him. The smile stretches even wider, a horrifying flash of teeth. Then it speaks. The voice isn't a distorted whisper anymore. It's his own voice, perfectly clear, right outside the glass. It says, "You know what you did, Alex. You know what you buried under the old Miller Bridge when you were 17. You think you got away? You didn't. You just left a door open for me." The color drains from Alex's face. Pure, absolute shock takes over. It's a secret he's carried for over a decade. A secret no one else alive knows. He feels his legs give out. The doppelganger's smile vanishes. Its face goes blank. It lowers its phone and raises one finger. It's pointing. Not at Alex. It's pointing toward the front of the house. Confused, terrified, Alex rips his eyes from the kitchen window for a single second. The camera's view pans with his gaze down the dark hallway to the front door. The video feed explodes into a violent storm of digital noise and static. The audio becomes a deafening shriek of electronic screaming and glitches. It lasts for 3 seconds. Then silence. The static cuts. The image returns, but the perspective is different. The phone is on the floor, on its side. It's pointing up at the front door from the inside. The armchair is still pushed against it. We hear footsteps. They're inside the house, walking on the hardwood floor, moving away from the front door, deeper into the home. Alex's panicked breathing is gone. A final, sickeningly clear sound cuts the silence. The slow, deliberate turn of the deadbolt on the front door. A loud, final click as the lock is disengaged. A long, terrible silence follows. 10 seconds. 15. Nothing. The recording ends. The things that wait between midnight and dawn. All across the globe, ancient tales whisper of the horrors that hunt in the deepest dark of night. These are the forgotten stories, the creatures that stir when the world is asleep, waiting for their moment between midnight and dawn. There's a reason we're afraid of the dark. It's a primal, instinctual memory passed down through generations that knew the night wasn't empty. They knew that being caught in the profound blackness, far from the safety of a fire, meant risking an encounter with something other, something ancient and hungry. This fear is sharpest in those liminal hours, that strange space on the clock where one day has died and the next hasn't quite been born. It's a time when the veil between worlds is said to be at its thinnest, a time the old stories called the witching hour. The term witching hour isn't just a trope for horror movies. It's a concept that has haunted humanity for centuries. Definitions vary, but it's often described as a time when supernatural beings like witches, demons, and ghosts are at their most powerful. While some folklore points to midnight itself, many traditions, especially in Christianity, finger the time between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning. This was seen as a deliberate, demonic inversion of the hour Christ is said to have died, a time when evil was strongest and divine influence was at its weakest. It was an hour of profound silence, a stillness in the world that felt unnatural, pregnant with unseen possibilities. In this deep, quiet dark, the world belongs to them. The things that wait. They're known by countless names in countless cultures, but their nature is terrifyingly consistent. They are the haunters of the threshold, the stalkers of the shadows, drawn to the sleeping and the vulnerable. And while many cultures have their own unique phantoms, some stories echo with such chilling similarity across continents that you have to wonder if they're all describing the same terrible truth. But what happens when the witching hour has a face? In Slavic folklore, they call her the Naknika. Imagine waking, but not completely. Your eyes are open, staring into the familiar shadows of your own room. But you can't move. You can't even draw a full breath. An immense, crushing weight is on your chest, and a dread so absolute it feels like ice in your veins paralyzes you. You are not alone. And you know, with a certainty that defies logic, that the thing in the room with you is the source of this terror. This is the experience of those visited by the Naknika, the Night Maiden. In Slavic lore, the Naknika is the personification of the night's suffocating terror. She's a shape-shifting wraith of pure malevolence that emerges from the darkness to torment the living as they sleep. She might appear as a goblin-like creature, a monstrous owl, or just a looming shadow, darker than the night around it. Her favorite method is to sit on her victim's chest, stealing their breath and feeding on their fear. It's an experience of utter helplessness, a conscious nightmare you can't escape. She is the reason children were warned not to misbehave, lest Lady Midnight visit them. While some tailies connect other spirits like the Mora to death in the cradle, the Naknika was a feared tormentor of children, a very real threat in the night. For centuries, people tried to protect themselves from this nocturnal predator. They placed hag stones with a natural hole through them by their beds. They slept with steel knives under their pillows or drew protective circles around cradles, all to ward off the suffocating presence of the night wraith. The terror of the Naknika was so real, so visceral, that it shaped the nightly rituals of entire communities. It raises a chilling question. Was this just folklore? Or was it a name for an experience so terrifying it could only be the work of a monster? These stories, passed down through generations, are more than just tales to frighten children. They are cultural artifacts, windows into the deepest fears of our ancestors. And if you believe these forgotten histories deserve to be brought into the light, consider sharing this video with someone who appreciates the mysteries of the dark. Your support helps us continue to uncover the things that wait in the shadows. Now, let's travel from the shadowed forests of Eastern Europe across the vast continent of Asia, where another kind of nocturnal hunger stirs. Here, the fear isn't of a predatory wraith, but of a suffering so profound it bleeds into the world of the living. This is the realm of the Preta, the hungry ghosts of Buddhist and Hindu tradition. A Preta is a soul tormented by a desire that can never be satisfied. In a past life, they were people of immense greed or envy. As karmic punishment, they're reborn into a state of perpetual, agonizing hunger and thirst. Their appearance is a grotesque metaphor for their condition. They're often shown with huge swollen bellies, signifying their boundless appetite, but with necks as thin as needles and mouths the size of a pinhole, making it impossible to ever consume anything. They aren't necessarily evil, like the Naknika. They are tragic, pitiable figures, but their presence is no less terrifying. Imagine hearing a faint, mournful cry outside your home in the dead of night. It could be a Preta, wandering the crossroads and boundaries of the human world, driven mad by an eternal, gnawing emptiness. They are drawn to the world of the living, to the smells of food, the sight of water, forever trapped just inches from a satisfaction they can never reach. This belief is so ingrained that many Asian cultures perform rituals to appease these suffering spirits. During festivals like the Ghost Month, a tradition with roots in Chinese Taoism and Buddhism, families leave out offerings of food and burn symbolic money to provide some small relief to the roaming spirits. It is an act of compassion, but also of caution. It's a recognition that the world after dark isn't empty, and that some of the things wandering through it are consumed by a pain so great you wouldn't want to draw their attention. The Preta is a reminder that some horrors are born not of malice, but of an endless, inconsolable sorrow. So, are these just stories? Are the Naknika and the Preta simply creative explanations for things our ancestors couldn't understand? Science, of course, has an answer. That feeling of waking up paralyzed, with a crushing weight on your chest and the unshakable sense of a malevolent presence in the room. That is a textbook description of sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is a fascinating and deeply frightening event. It happens when your mind wakes up, but your body is still in the muscular paralysis of REM sleep. You're conscious, but your body is still dreaming. In this disoriented state, the brain can generate powerful, vivid hallucinations, waking nightmares projected onto your real-world surroundings. Your mind, struggling to make sense of the paralysis and the feeling of breathlessness, invents a cause. A figure in the corner, a creature on your chest. It's a perfect explanation for the Naknika and other night hag legends from all over the world. It's logical, it's rational, and yet it doesn't quite erase the fear, does it? To say these experiences are just hallucinations doesn't diminish the raw, primal terror they cause. For the person living through it, the creature is real, the dread is real, the weight is real. Maybe science hasn't explained away the monsters. Maybe it has just given us a name for the biological doorway they use to slip through the veil and sit on our chests in the dead of night. From the suffocating terror of the Naknika to the sorrowful hunger of the Preda, our folklore is soaked in tales of creatures of the night. Whether you see them as literal monsters, psychological archetypes, or neurological glitches, their power is undeniable. They represent our deepest anxieties, the fear of helplessness, of endless suffering, of the unknown that presses in on all sides when the sun goes down. These stories prove that for all our modern science and electric lights, we've never truly conquered the dark or the basic fear of what waits inside it. So the next time you wake up in the silent, suffocating darkness and you get that feeling, you're not alone, ask yourself, is it just a dream? Or has something been waiting for you between midnight and dawn? What do you think? Are there local legends in your area about things that haunt the night? Share your stories in the comments below. And if you want to explore more of the world's darkest corners, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. There's someone living between the seconds. Okay, so this is entry number 12, I think. My therapist, Dr. Evans, he said I should keep a video log to try and document the episodes. He calls it chronodysplasia. It's a name I'm pretty sure he just invented for me, because when you search for it, nothing. Not a single medical paper, no research zip. He says my brain is failing to render time seamlessly. He says for most people, life is like a movie. For me, ... It's more like a corrupted video file. There are these gaps, tiny little skips, a dropped frame in my own perception, but I feel them. And the craziest part, I think there's someone in there, living in them. It didn't start this bad. At first, it was just a flicker, a kind of visual stutter. I'd be pouring coffee, and for a split second, the mug would be empty, then it would be full again. It just skipped the whole part of me pouring. I'd turn a page in a book, and my hand would just be on one side, then instantly on the other. Tiny little jumps in reality. Dr. Evans promised me it was all in my head, just a neurological misfire. His best guess was something called saccadic masking. You know, how your brain just deletes the blur when your eyes move fast. He said my brain was just over-deleting. But here's the thing. A camera doesn't have a brain. It can't have a neurological disorder. It just records what's there. This is from log 4. I was just recording the room, hoping to catch something. Anything that would prove I wasn't making it up. For hours, nothing. Just my quiet, empty apartment. The clock on the wall just ticking away. But then, at 3:17 in the morning, it happened. A skip, right there on the recording. The second hand on my clock jumps. It goes from the 22-second mark, straight to 24. It didn't just speed up. A whole second just vanished. My doctor says it's impossible, that it has to be a technical fault, but I've tested the clock. I've tested the camera. They're fine. He tried to explain it away with everything he could think of. Power fluctuations, software glitches, electromagnetic interference. So I set up more cameras. Multiple cameras, all on different power sources, different batteries, different memory cards. And the skips started happening on all of them at the exact same time, down to the microsecond. That's not a hardware problem. That's a reality problem. He told me that intense fear can warp our sense of time, but what the cameras caught wasn't a warped feeling. It wasn't a distortion. It was an absence. A literal hole in the data, showing a moment in time that was recorded, processed, and then just gone, leaving a scar in the file. I got obsessed. My apartment is a total mess of lenses and microphones now. I don't sleep anymore. I just watch the monitors. I just sit here in the dark, surrounded by all these little glowing screens, hunting for skips. The silence is the worst part. It's so loud, you know. In the absolute quiet, you start hearing things that aren't there. Or maybe they are there, and the noise of a normal day just covers them up. I started analyzing the audio from the skips. In that tiny little space between one sound and the next, there's something. If you crank the volume way up, filter out the static, you can hear it. It's not a voice. It's like the sound of wet cloth ripping, but stretched over a split second. A sound that has no reason to be in my apartment. Then I saw it. It was during one of those nights, just staring at the screen. A single frame, wedged into a skip that was less than 1/30th of a second long. At first, it just looked like a flicker of digital noise. But I slowed it down, going frame by agonizing frame, and there it was. It looked human, but wrong. The proportions were all stretched, like when you see your reflection in a funhouse mirror. It was just a silhouette, this uncanny shape that felt totally alien. It was in my room, standing by my window for one single frame. An image of something that, as far as I knew, was never there. This wasn't a glitch in my head. This was a peek into a space that shouldn't exist. They're happening more often now. The skips are getting longer, and the figure, it's getting clearer. It's not just some vague shadow anymore. In a skip from 2 nights ago, I saw its hand. It was long and bony, with way too many joints, and it was just resting on the back of my chair. It was there for 3 whole frames. And things are changing in the apartment. The skips aren't just on the recordings. They're bleeding into my life. I'll feel a glitch, that little lapse, and when the world snaps back, something's different. A book I left on the table is suddenly on the floor. The door I know I locked is now open a crack. It's this quiet, subtle violation of my home that's making me feel like I'm losing my mind. I think it knows I can see it. The glitches feel different now. They feel intentional. That ripping sound in the gaps is clearer. It almost sounds like a whisper, a sibilant hiss that I can't quite understand. Last night, I was watching the main camera, the one pointed down the hall. For a full second, the video froze. Then, a single new frame appeared. It was the figure, but this time it was right up close to the camera, bent over, like it was peering right into the lens. Its face was just a blur of distorted features, but I swear I could see something that looked like a huge empty eye socket. It's not just a ghost in the machine anymore. It's watching me back. Dr. Evans has no more ideas. He says this is beyond any known temporal disorder. He thinks I'm having hallucinations, that maybe some past trauma is creating this thing. He can't explain the footage, though. He can't explain why 4 different cameras skip at the exact same instant, or why things are moving in my apartment. He can't explain the picture of a figure that shouldn't exist. I don't know what else to do. I'm putting this online because I'm terrified. Has anyone ever felt this? A skip in the world? A moment that just disappears? If you have, please just say something. I really need to know I'm not the only one who sees what's living in the quiet. It's happening. It's It's not just skipping anymore. The clock, you can hear it. It's getting slow. The gaps, they're getting so much longer. Oh God, I saw it. I just saw it with my own eyes. It's not on the screen. It's here. In the room with me, please. I haven't slept in 7 days because something's watching me. I haven't slept in 7 days because something is watching me. The first 2 nights were just long. You know how it is. You lie there, staring at the ceiling, counting the cracks like they're stars. You punch your pillow, you flip it over, you try anything to get comfortable, but it just won't come. You tell yourself it's just stress, bad week at work, too much coffee. You tell yourself, I'll sleep tomorrow. That's what I told myself. It was just normal, frustrating insomnia. My body was begging for rest, but my mind was a race car with no brakes. Every night just sort of melted into a gray, fuzzy morning, leaving me exhausted and angry at everything. I was running on fumes. It was miserable, but it was still normal. But then the 3rd night came, and that's when normal ended for good. On the 3rd night, the exhaustion was a physical thing. A weight. My bones ached. My eyes felt like they had sand in them. I remember just falling into bed, praying to pass out. I started to drift into that weird space between awake and asleep, that place where your thoughts get strange and swim around. I was so close, and then a floorboard creaked in the hall. My eyes snapped open. It was a tiny sound, the kind of thing you'd usually ignore. But after 3 days of sleepless silence, every little noise was like a gunshot. I held my breath, listened, nothing. I told myself I was just being paranoid, that being this tired was making my senses go into overdrive. I rolled over, pulling the blanket up to my chin, like a little kid hiding from monsters. I squeezed my eyes shut, and that's when I saw it. Not with my eyes. It was behind them. Just for a second, an image burned into the blackness. A shape, tall, way too thin. It was standing in the corner of my room, by the wardrobe. It was just a silhouette, no face, no features. But I knew, with a certainty that turned my blood to ice, that it was looking right at me. I ripped my eyes open, and the room was empty. The corner was just a corner. The wardrobe was just a wardrobe. Nothing there. Just a trick of my tired brain, I told myself. A waking dream. A hallucination from being so exhausted. But the feeling of being watched, it didn't leave. It stayed in the room, thick and heavy like humidity before a storm. I spent the rest of night 3 with the lamp on, just staring at that empty corner, my heart beating a hole in my chest. Sleep was off the table. Day 4 was a complete blur of caffeine and yawning. I felt like a zombie. My coworkers' voices sounded like they were coming from the other end of a long pipe. I was jumpy and my thoughts felt slow, like wading through mud. By the time I got home, I was dreading the night. The sun went down, and the fear started creeping back up my spine. I tried to be smart about it. I left the hall light on. I put on some quiet music. I told myself over and over, there is nothing in the corner. That night, the second I closed my eyes, it was there again. It hadn't moved. Just a silent, black figure, standing there in the dark of my own mind. But this time, it felt clearer, sharper. I could almost make out the weird slope of its shoulders, the way its head was tilted just slightly. I fought the urge to open my eyes, to check the real corner. I had to prove to myself it wasn't real. But the feeling of its stare was like a physical pressure inside my head. I couldn't stand it. My eyes flew open. The room was empty. The corner was empty. But the air was cold. So cold. By day 5, I was a wreck. I kept having these microsleeps at my desk. My head would slump over and snap back up, and I wouldn't even remember dozing off. The world looked shimmery and fake. I knew I couldn't keep going like this. I called in sick and made a doctor's appointment. I sat in that sterile room on that crinkly paper and I tried to explain it. I told him about the insomnia, the crushing fatigue. And then my voice dropped to a whisper and I told him about the thing I see, how it's only there when my eyes are closed, this constant watching presence. He listened, nodded politely, but then he started talking, and his words were just a cold, clinical slap in the face. He used phrases like severe sleep deprivation and perceptual distortions. He explained that after 72 hours without sleep, the brain can create its own hallucinations. He said I was seeing hypnagogic hallucinations, waking dreams that feel real but aren't. He said the feeling of being watched was just a classic symptom of the anxiety and paranoia that comes with being this tired. He wrote me a prescription for some heavy-duty sleeping pills and gave me a reassuring smile. "Get some sleep," he said. "Once you're rested, it'll stop. Your brain is just playing tricks on you." I walked out of there feeling more alone than ever. He thought I was just tired. He didn't get it. The way he said hallucination made it sound so neat, so easy to explain away. But this didn't feel like a trick. It didn't feel like it was coming from my mind. It felt external, like an invasion. The fear I felt wasn't just anxiety. It was the primal fear of being hunted. That night, I just stared at the bottle of pills. One pill, and it could all be over. But I was terrified. What happens if I fall asleep? What happens then? Will it still be there, watching me while I'm helpless? Or will it take that chance to do something? To move? I didn't take the pill. I decided I had to face it. I turned off the lights, got in bed, and closed my eyes. It was there, but it wasn't in the corner anymore. It was closer. It was standing at the foot of my bed. I could feel what was left of my sanity starting to crack. The line between what was real and what the doctor called a hallucination was blurring into nothing. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. I kept my eyes shut, shaking. I had to see if it would do something. For what felt like forever, it just stood there. And then I heard a sound that wasn't in my head. A soft, wet whisper. My name. My eyes shot open. The sound of that whisper was still hanging in the air, like poison. The foot of the bed was empty. Of course it was, but I heard it. I know I heard it. That wasn't some auditory hallucination like the doctor would say. It was real. Day 6 was the beginning of the end. I didn't leave my apartment. I couldn't. The world outside felt like a movie playing on a screen, and I wasn't in it anymore. My whole reality had shrunk down to these 4 walls and the thing that was haunting them. I stopped trying to rationalize it. The doctor's words were useless against a fear this deep. My mind wasn't playing tricks on me. My mind was a city under siege, and the walls were about to crumble. I spent the day on high alert. Every creak in the floor, every groan of the pipes, ... Was that it? Was it testing me? I started noticing little things out of place. A book I left on the coffee table was now on the floor. The bathroom door, which I always keep closed, was open a crack. Tiny things, so small they made me question my own memory. Did I do that? Am I losing time? The doubt was its own kind of poison, making everything worse. The fear kept me awake, and being awake made the fear stronger. As night fell on the 6th day, I stayed out of the bedroom. I sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, with every single light in the apartment on. I refused to close my eyes. I stared at the TV, not really watching, just letting the light burn my eyes. Hours went by. My eyelids felt like sandpaper. My head drooped, and for just a second, a microsleep got me. In that split second of darkness, I saw it. It was standing in the doorway of the living room. It wasn't just a silhouette anymore. The darkness of it seemed to bend the light around it. It was still featureless, but it had a shape that was just wrong. Its arms and legs were too long, its body too narrow. It looked like a person that had been stretched, distorted, and broken. My body jerked awake. The doorway was empty, but the terror was complete. It wasn't staying behind my eyelids anymore. It was bleeding into my world. It was getting bolder, stronger, and I knew, with a certainty that was colder and sharper than any fear I'd ever known, that it was waiting for the seventh night. It was waiting for me to be at my absolute weakest. Today is the seventh day. I haven't slept. I don't think my body even knows how to anymore. The wall between my mind and the world is gone. I see it now, even with my eyes open, quick movements in the corner of my vision. A flicker of a shadow that's gone when I turn my head. The whispers are back, soft and constant, right on the edge of hearing. I'm in my bedroom. I don't know why I came back in here. Maybe some part of me just knows this is where it has to end. I'm sitting on the floor with my back against the wall. The sun went down hours ago. I know it's here. I don't need to close my eyes to know it's in the room with me. The cold is a real thing, a pressure that makes it hard to breathe. I can't stop shaking. My thoughts are a scrambled mess of panic and exhaustion. The doctor was wrong. This isn't a symptom of sleep deprivation. The sleep deprivation is a symptom of it. It needed me weak. It needed me confused and unable to tell what was real anymore. It needed me broken. I'm writing this down. I don't know why. So someone knows, I guess. So someone finds this and knows I wasn't just losing my mind. It's standing by my bedroom door now. I can see its shape. A column of pure black against the dim hallway light. It's not moving, just watching. Waiting. It knows it's already won. It knows I have nothing left. No fight, no energy, no sanity. It's raising its hand. The motion is slow, unnatural, like a bone bending the wrong way. It's reaching for the doorknob. Oh God, it's turning the knob. The click, it's the loudest sound I've ever heard. The door is starting to. If you've ever seen something in the dead of night that you just can't explain, let me know in the comments. What did you see? And what do you think is on the other side of that door? Don't forget to like and subscribe to Halfway Dark for more stories from the shadows. Stay safe. And whatever you do, get some sleep. You never know what's waiting for you to get tired. The Library of Unfinished Dreams. When I was 19, I took a job at a storage facility on the edge of town. Graveyard shifts, barely any pay, but I needed the work. On my second week, I noticed something strange. Unit 47 had no lock. Every other door had a metal bolt and key tag, but 47 was always slightly open. When I asked my boss about it, he frowned and said, "Don't touch that one. It isn't on the lease." That night, curiosity got the better of me. I pushed the door open, and I swear to you, it wasn't a storage unit inside. It was a library. Not a normal one. The shelves stretched impossibly high, vanishing into darkness above. No ladders, no lights. Just row after row of books, each one black and unfinished. Their titles written in handwriting that looked like it was changing when I blinked. And there was someone inside. A librarian. She wasn't old or young. Her face shifted every time I looked. Her clothes were stitched together from scraps of paper. And her eyes weren't eyes at all, but two torn-out sentences floating in empty sockets. She whispered, "Welcome to the Library of Unfinished Dreams." I should have run, but I didn't, because the books, they weren't fiction. They were dreams. I opened one at random. On the first page, I saw handwriting I recognized, my own. The dream I'd had when I was 6 years old, standing on a roof, watching the moon split into teeth. But it didn't stop where I woke up. The book kept going, finishing the dream for me, and the ending was wrong. In the book, the moon came down and swallowed me whole. The librarian whispered again, close enough for me to feel the paper of her voice against my skin. Every dream unfinished is kept here. Every dream that could have continued, every path not walked, every sleep interrupted. We keep them until someone claims them. I asked, "What happens if I claim one?" Her smile stretched too wide. "You finish it." She handed me a book that glowed faintly, like something alive was trapped inside. I didn't want to take it, but my hands moved anyway. On the cover was my name. That night, I dreamed again, but it wasn't like normal sleep. It was forced. I was back on that rooftop, staring at the moon with its rows of jagged teeth. Only this time, I couldn't wake up. The dream ran like a movie on rails, dragging me through the ending I had read in the book. I felt the shadow of the moon descend, its teeth closing around me. I screamed and screamed, but the dream didn't let go until the last page turned. When I woke up, my throat was raw. My bedsheets were chewed into shreds, and on my nightstand was the book. I tried to return it the next night, but when I went back to Unit 47, the library was bigger. The shelves had multiplied, and the books weren't just mine. I saw dreams from people I knew. My father's nightmare about drowning, my friend's recurring dream of a door with no handle, even my ex's dream about teeth falling out. Except in the book, the teeth kept falling long after she woke, piling into mountains of bone. And worse, I saw books that hadn't been claimed yet, but were marked for me. Each spine had my name stamped on it, waiting. Hundreds, maybe thousands. The librarian leaned close, her paper-stitched mouth rustling as she whispered, "You will dream them all." I stopped sleeping after that. I stayed awake for 3 days, living on caffeine and panic. But dreams don't care. On the 4th night, I blinked, just once, and I was already there, in the library, walking the shelves in my own dream. And the books were opening by themselves, pages fluttering, ink dripping like blood. The librarian's voice echoed everywhere. Every unfinished dream must finish, or it finishes you. It's been weeks since then. I can't tell what's waking life and what's dream. Sometimes I see strangers with spines of books sticking out of their backs, walking through grocery stores. Sometimes I hear whispers from my walls, paper scraping against paper. And every morning, when I check my nightstand, there's a new book waiting for me. Always black, always with my name, always open to the first page. I don't know how long I can keep going, because the library doesn't just collect dreams, it collects dreamers. And last night, I saw something on the shelf I can't unsee. A book I haven't dreamed yet. Its title is simple: The Night You Never Woke Up. The Room That Kept Breathing. Welcome back to Halfway Dark, the home of Reddit horror stories, eerie night shift confessions, and urban legends too strange to ignore. If you crave unsettling horror that sneaks under your skin, subscribe now and step inside the horror box. Tonight's story isn't about ghosts on your phone or monsters in the woods. It's about the place you know best, your own home. I didn't notice it the first few weeks. The house was old, creaking in all the usual ways. Drafts slipped through the windows, pipes moaned in the walls, and the floorboards sighed whenever you crossed the hall. It was the kind of noise you tune out until you can't. The first time I noticed something was wrong, I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet. Then I heard it. Breathing. Not my breathing. Not the rhythm of sleep or the sound of my own lungs. This was deeper, slower, as if the house itself had a chest rising and falling. I told myself it was the pipes, maybe the wind pushing air through the cracks. But once you hear something like that, you can't unhear it. The walls didn't just creak. They inhaled. The sound came mostly at night. The house would go still, and then I'd hear it long, slow breaths, like something trying to stay calm in the dark. Sometimes it came from the walls, sometimes from the ceiling. Once, I swear, It came from the floor directly beneath my bed. I tried to laugh it off. Old houses settle, right? That's what everyone says. But then the pattern started. I realized the breathing matched mine. If I held my breath, the house held its. If I gasped, startled awake, the sound in the walls did too, like we were connected. That's when it stopped being funny. If you're listening right now, hit subscribe to Halfway Dark, because this is one of those Reddit horror stories where the ordinary turns hostile. The kind of story you don't just hear, you feel it. And once you step inside the horror box, you can't leave. One night, I pressed my ear to the wall. I wanted proof, something I could explain away. But when I did, I didn't just hear breathing. I heard a heartbeat. A steady, slow thump deep inside the plaster. The wall wasn't hollow. It was alive. I stumbled back, heart hammering, and for the first time since I'd moved in, I slept with the lights on. It got worse. The air in the house grew humid, damp like someone exhaling against my skin. Sometimes I'd wake up sweating, the sheets clinging to me, and the whole room would stink like warm breath. I started noticing spots where the paint peeled, not water damage, not mold. The shape was always the same oval patches, damp and soft, like pores opening in the walls. And sometimes, in the corner of my eye, I thought I saw the wallpaper shift. Not flutter, not peel pulse. I tried staying out late, avoiding the house. But the thing about dread is it waits for you. One night, I came home exhausted, too tired to fight it. I collapsed into bed, barely able to keep my eyes open. And then the breathing began, louder than ever, faster. I froze, pulling the blanket to my chin. My own breath came quick and shallow, and the sound in the walls matched it, rasping, frantic, desperate to keep up. The whole room seemed to contract with each inhale, expand with each exhale. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. All I could do was listen as the house began to pant. I don't know what possessed me to speak. Maybe I thought it would break the illusion, prove I was imagining it. But I whispered, "What are you?" The breathing stopped. The silence was worse. I sat there, rigid, until I finally convinced myself it was over. My eyelids grew heavy, my chest slowed, and then directly against my ear, pressed to the mattress from below, a whisper, "Home." After that, I couldn't stay. I moved out within a week, leaving most of my things behind. I told people it was the rent, the location, a job change, any excuse but the truth. But even now, months later, when I close my eyes in a quiet room, I sometimes hear it, breathing, as if the place I once called home is still out there, waiting for me to return. And I know, if I ever step back inside, it'll inhale deep like lungs filling after being starved too long. Because I wasn't just living in that house. The house was living with me. That was the room that kept breathing a story from the edge of Reddit horror confessions. The kind of urban legend that feels too close to ignore. If this gave you chills, if you felt your own walls closing in while listening, then hit subscribe to Halfway Dark and step deeper into the horror box. We tell the stories that cult horror writers whisper about. The kind that don't just entertain, but haunt you. Now tell me in the comments, have you ever heard your house breathe? There are stories you expect, and then there are stories that hit you like a sickness. Stories that bend reality in ways you can't prepare for. If you're hearing this, it means you've already gone too far. But that's why you're here, isn't it? This is Halfway Dark, where horror doesn't just scare you, it rewires you. The man who eats names? When I was little, my grandmother used to warn me, never say your name after midnight. That's when he's listening. I thought it was just superstition, something old people say to keep kids quiet at night. But I know now it wasn't, because the first time I heard him, I was 17. It was just after midnight. I was brushing my teeth, humming to myself, and then, in the silence between hums, I heard it. A man's voice, whispering my name, not from outside, not from inside my head, from underneath the silence. I froze. The voice whispered again, slower this time, like it was tasting the syllables. And when I looked in the mirror, I swear my reflection mouthed it too. I didn't tell anyone, but the next day, weird things started happening. When people said my name, they stumbled, like the word caught in their throats, like it was harder to say than it should have been. A teacher paused mid-roll call, squinting at the paper as if the letters were blurred. My best friend laughed nervously when she couldn't remember how to pronounce it, even though she'd known me for years. By the end of the week, even my parents hesitated before speaking it, like my name was being eaten. That night, I heard him again. This time, he wasn't whispering. He was chewing. Slow, wet, tearing sounds, followed by a low groan of satisfaction. And then, through the chewing, he whispered, "Almost finished." Names started disappearing around me. The kid who sat next to me in math, gone. His desk empty, teachers never mentioned him. His picture vanished from the yearbook. My neighbor's dog, nobody remembered it had ever lived there. Even my grandmother, the one who warned me. Her chair sat empty, her room abandoned, and when I asked about her, my parents only frowned. We never had family here, but I remember, I know, because every time he eats a name, I hear it, the crunch of it, the swallow, the satisfied sigh. Last night, he came closer. I woke to the sound of breathing at the end of my bed. Heavy, slow. When I sat up, I saw a man-shaped shadow. No face, no features, just a mouth that stretched impossibly wide, dripping with black saliva. He leaned forward, lips pulling back into something like a smile, and whispered what was left of my name. It wasn't all there anymore, just fragments, like teeth broken out of a jaw. And then he asked me something I'll never forget. "Do you want to see what you taste like?" I don't know how much longer I have. People already avoid me without knowing why. My name is rotting, falling out of existence, letter by letter. When I look in the mirror, my reflection's lips move, but no sound comes out. My mouth is empty, hollow, and tonight I can hear him chewing again. Closer, louder, the sound of teeth grinding bone. And when I try to scream, nothing comes out, because my name is almost gone. And once it's gone completely, so am I. That was the story of the man who eats names. If you're still repeating your own name under your breath right now, trying to make sure it's still there, you're not alone. That's the danger of listening this far. The story doesn't let go. And if you want more, if you want to keep stepping into places nobody else dares, this is Halfway Dark. Subscribe now, before your name is the next one he eats. You found Halfway Dark, the channel where the stories go beyond scary into the truly unsettling. Tonight's tale is one of the strangest and most disturbing horror stories you'll ever hear. Subscribe now if you dare, because once you step into Halfway Dark, there's no going back. The Backward Man in the House of Glass. I found the post buried deep in a forgotten subreddit. The title was simple. Has anyone else seen the Backward Man? The username was a string of random letters and numbers, and the account had been created the same day. The story had no upvotes, no comments, no awards. Just a block of text, written like a frantic warning. At first, I thought it was another creepypasta knockoff, but the deeper I read, the more I felt something was off. This wasn't written like a story. It was written like a confession. The poster claimed they had moved into a cheap rental house with mirrored walls in certain rooms. A weird architectural experiment, the landlord said. Whole sections of the house reflected endlessly, like standing inside a funhouse. That's when they began seeing him, the Backward Man. According to the post, he only appeared in reflections. At first, he was just standing in the background, too far away to make out details. a shadow in reverse. But every time the tenant looked into a mirror, the figure was closer, his body bending and moving in ways that didn't line up with normal human anatomy. His knees bent backward, his head turned too far. His hands dragged like they belonged to someone else. The tenant said they tried to take photos, but every picture came out blank, just their own reflection, alone. Still, they swore they could hear him at night, the sound of bones popping backward, footsteps that went the wrong direction down the hallway. Halfway through the post, the writing got erratic, typos everywhere, sentences cut off mid-thought. One line chilled me the most. He doesn't move when I look at him directly, only when I blink. Please, if you read this, don't come to the House of Glass. He wants more people. That's where the post ended. No replies. No edits, just silence. Normally I'd scroll past, but curiosity got me. I typed the address mentioned in the comments, a real location. A rundown house 2 towns over. A listing with broken photos on Zillow. And yes, walls lined with floor-to-ceiling mirrors. Against all common sense, I went. When I arrived, the house was empty. For lease, the lockbox had been broken. I stepped inside. The mirrors were everywhere. The living room, the kitchen. Even the bathroom ceiling was mirrored, so you had to look up at yourself while on the toilet. And then I saw him. Not in front of me, not behind me, but inside the reflection. His face was blurred, like static. His limbs bent at wrong angles, his body always slightly out of sync with my movements. He stood in the far corner of the mirror, his posture hunched, watching. I blinked. Now he was closer. I blinked again, closer. I tried not to blink, my eyes burning, tears streaming. But the body's need to blink is stronger than any fear. When my eyes shut for a fraction of a second, he was inches away in the reflection, his head tilted too far backward, mouth open wide. And then I heard the sound. Click. A wet, snapping click of joints bending the wrong way. But this time, it wasn't just inside the mirror. The sound was behind me. I turned. Nothing. The mirror showed him, standing just at my shoulder. I spun around again, but the room was empty. Yet the reflection showed otherwise. He was reaching, one long backward arm stretching toward me. And then the mirrors began to fracture, not breaking outward, but inward, like the glass was caving into itself, warping reality. My reflection stretched, distorted, and the backward man stepped halfway out. I ran. I don't remember leaving. Don't remember how I got home. All I know is I can't look at mirrors anymore. Not in the bathroom, not in windows at night. Because sometimes I catch him, standing just over my shoulder. And when I blink, click. That was tonight's story. Strange, disturbing, and unsettling. If you felt the chill of the backward man, imagine what else waits inside Halfway Dark. Subscribe now for more creepy, cursed, and terrifying stories you won't find anywhere else. Drop a comment below and tell us, would you dare step into the House of Glass? Welcome to Halfway Dark. Welcome back to Halfway Dark. Tonight's story isn't just a story, it's a haunting. If you listen, it will follow you. Before you go any further, subscribe now. It's the only way to know you're not alone when the strange begins to notice you too. The person who waits. It started the day I moved into my new apartment. Everything was clean, bare, ordinary, except for one thing. A chair. A single wooden chair sat in the far corner of the bedroom. The landlord swore it wasn't his. Said it must have been left by the last tenant. I almost told him to take it away, but something about the way he looked at it made me stop. He didn't meet my eyes when he left. He just muttered, "Don't sit in it." I laughed it off. People leave junk behind all the time. A chair was just a chair. Or at least, it should have been. The first night, I woke up around 3 in the morning. My room was dark, silent. But the chair wasn't empty. Someone was sitting in it. I couldn't make out details, just the outline of a figure, perfectly still, facing me. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes, and when I looked again, the chair was empty. I told myself it was sleep paralysis, just my brain playing tricks. But the next night, it happened again. And this time, when I saw the figure, I could hear it breathing. Days passed, and I tried to ignore it. I worked. I ate. I pretended nothing was wrong. But every night, the chair was occupied. And little by little, the figure wasn't staying still anymore. Its head would tilt. Its shoulders would rise and fall. Sometimes I'd hear a faint tapping, like fingernails drumming on the wood. By the end of the week, I realized something terrible. It wasn't just watching me while I slept. It was waiting. I thought about getting rid of the chair, but the thought made me nauseous, as if the idea didn't belong to me. So instead, I decided to test it. One night, before bed, I whispered into the dark, "Who are you?" The room held its breath. No movement, no sound. And then, a whisper answered back, "I am the one who waits." My blood went cold. I flicked on the light. Nothing. The chair was empty. But I knew I'd heard it. From then on, it wasn't confined to the nights. I'd catch glimpses in mirrors, shadows, reflections on dark windows. Always that same still figure, seated patiently. At work, in the corner of the break room. On the subway, faint in the glass behind me. Even once, horrifyingly, reflected in my own pupils when I looked in the bathroom mirror. Always seated, always waiting. I tried to outsmart it. I moved the chair to the living room, slept in the bedroom. That night, I woke up to find the chair had moved back. The scrape marks on the floor proved it. I left the chair in the hallway. The next morning, it was back in the corner of my bedroom, facing the bed, always facing the bed. The whispers grew bolder. Sometimes I'd wake to hear it muttering, a low droning chant too soft to make out. Sometimes louder, right by my ear. "Not yet, not yet." One night I asked again, "What are you waiting for?" The reply came instantly, close enough to feel its breath on my face. "For you to sit." I called the landlord, asked if the last tenant had complained. There was silence on the line, then a sigh. "They always see the chair," he said, "but they never stay long enough to understand." "What happened to them?" I asked. He hung up. Sleep became impossible. I drank coffee until my hands shook. I left the lights on, the TV blaring, but exhaustion always won. And every time I woke, the figure was clearer. Not just an outline anymore. I could see the folds of its clothes, dark, loose fabric that seemed to move slightly, as though stirred by a breeze I couldn't feel. I could see its hands resting on the chair's arms, long fingers curled just enough to show nails too sharp, too black, but never its face. Its face was always shadow. The final night came without warning. I woke, and for the first time, the chair was empty. Relief hit me like a drug. I almost cried, but then I heard it, the creak of wood, not from the chair, but from my own bed. Slowly terrified, I looked down. The figure was sitting at the edge of the mattress, closer than it had ever been, waiting. I don't remember screaming. I don't remember moving. All I remember is darkness swallowing me whole. And when I opened my eyes, I was no longer in my room. I was seated in the chair. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, couldn't breathe. The figure stood before me now, its face still hidden. It leaned close, and for the first time, I saw its mouth move. "You waited long enough." That's where the story ends. At least, that's where mine does. Because if you ever find a chair in your room, one you didn't put there, don't sit in it. Don't even touch it. Because once you do, it's not your chair anymore. It's your turn to wait. And someone, somewhere, is already watching you from the corner of their own room. That was the person who waits. If you're still here, then maybe the chair hasn't found you yet. Subscribe to Halfway Dark for more haunting, original horror stories that stay with you long after the lights go out. And tell me in the comments, would you dare to sit? The Night Shift Siren, Halfway Dark Horror Box Original, Night Shift Horror Story. Some nights you think the world is asleep, but out there in the quiet streets and abandoned warehouses, something is awake, something waiting. Before you keep listening, make sure you subscribe to Halfway Dark. We specialize in Reddit horror stories, night shift terror, cursed urban legends, and mysterious unexplained encounters. Hit subscribe so you won't miss the darkness. I work nights at a 24-hour warehouse on the edge of town. Most nights are uneventful, just forklifts humming, alarms blinking, and the occasional clatter of boxes. But one night, everything changed. I was making my rounds at 2:30 in the morning, the fluorescent lights flickering when I heard it. A voice, sweet, melodic, almost like singing. The sound was impossible. There shouldn't have been anyone there. I had checked every corner, every storage aisle. Nothing. But the voice didn't stop. It drifted toward me, soft and intoxicating, curling into my ears like smoke. I swear it whispered my name. Come closer, come closer. I don't know what compelled me to follow. Maybe curiosity, maybe fear, maybe some instinct older than reason. As I moved through the warehouse, the singing became clearer. The sound echoed off the metal shelves. It was beautiful and horrifying at the same time, and I could feel it. A pressure building in my chest, tightening my ribs. Then I saw it. Not a person, not human, something humanoid, but impossible. Its skin shimmered with an oily reflection. Its mouth stretched unnaturally, lips too thin, too wide, singing in a voice that should not exist. Eyes like black mirrors. And yet, I couldn't look away. It was standing in the middle of the warehouse, perfectly still, framed by the flickering fluorescent light. I should have run, but I didn't. I called my manager later, trying to convince myself it was a prank, someone messing with me. But he didn't answer, and my phone, it didn't ring either. Not inside the warehouse, not outside. It was like the sound itself had been stolen. The voice returned, drifting closer again, soft, seductive, almost loving. I felt my knees weaken, just a little closer. I found myself in the old loading bay, empty for years, a place no one used. The air shimmered like heat waves, and the voice pressed against my skull. And then I realized it wasn't singing. It was feeding, pulling energy from my fear, from my attention, from the sound of my own heartbeat. And if I didn't obey, it would. I don't know. It would take something. I left the warehouse that night, but the voice followed me home, on the street, through my apartment door. In the hum of my fridge, the drip of my faucet, the sweet, impossible singing echoing endlessly in my mind. Sleep became a nightmare. Every sound outside, every whisper, every hum became a lure. A reminder, a promise. I returned to the warehouse 3 nights later, drawn by the voice. It was worse this time. The lights pulsated like a heartbeat. The shelves warped and bent impossibly. And the figure waited, always waiting. It didn't move toward me. It didn't need to. Every glance, every thought, every sound I made pulled me in. And I finally understood. The night shift siren doesn't chase. It doesn't attack. It waits. It listens. And when you come near, willingly or not, it collects. That was the Night Shift Siren, a story of night shift horror, cursed urban legends, and unexplained encounters that will haunt your nights. If the dread gripped you, subscribe to Halfway Dark for more stories that crawl under your skin. Like this video if you'll never walk through an empty warehouse the same way. Comment below. Would you follow the voice or run? Ring the bell because the siren listens, and she always waits. The vacancy that shouldn't exist. A night shift, horror story, halfway dark. Have you ever checked into a motel that didn't seem real? I was the only guest. At least, I thought I was until I realized every room already had someone inside. Before we start, if you love true Reddit horror stories, night shift terror, and urban legends that feel too real, subscribe to Halfway Dark. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one. I'd been driving cross-country, exhausted, and pulled off at a tiny roadside motel glowing dimly in the desert. The sign read vacancy in flickering neon. But here's the thing, every window had a light on. Every single room. Inside, the clerk didn't look up. He was pale, gaunt, staring at the counter as though he'd been waiting all night. "One room left," he rasped. His voice sounded brittle, like paper tearing. That was impossible. The lot was empty. But I was too tired to argue. He handed me a brass key. Room 6. When I turned it over in my hand, I noticed something carved into the metal. Just one word: stay. What would you do if every window in a motel was lit, but there were no cars outside? First night, the room was spotless. Too spotless. Bed perfectly made, curtains drawn, air heavy with the faint smell of bleach. I set my bag down, tried the TV. It played static on every channel. At some point, I dozed off and woke to the sound of voices, muffled through the wall. Dozens of them layered over each other, whispering. I pressed my ear against the plaster. The words were faint, but I caught one phrase repeated again and again. Don't check out. My heart raced. I grabbed my keys, ready to leave, when I noticed something terrifying. The brass motel key wasn't in my pocket anymore. It was in the lock, on the inside of the door, and it had turned itself. The other rooms the next morning, I went to return the key, but the clerk was gone. The front desk sat empty, bell covered in dust. I walked down the row of rooms. Every curtain was drawn tight, every door identical to mine. On a whim, I pressed my ear to room 7. Breathing, slow, steady breathing. Room 8, scratching, nails dragging across the wood. Room 9, laughter, high-pitched, strained, wrong. And then room 10, silence until the peephole darkened. Someone was standing right on the other side. When I backed away, a knob rattled violently, like someone desperate to get out. Would you look inside one of those rooms? Or run before you knew the truth? Escalation 1. The guest book by the office door. I found a thick leather guest book. Every name, date, and room number had been written in neat script. Except the final page. It was blank. Except for a line scrawled across the bottom. Do not write your name. I flipped back through decades of entries. Same pattern. Each page ended with that same warning, growing shakier over the years. And then I saw it. Room 6, my room, appeared again and again. Every decade. Different names, same room. Every entry crossed out in thick ink, as if to erase them. But when I turned the page, I saw my name, already written. Escalation 2, the guest. That night, I tried to sleep, but the voices returned, louder now, urgent. Stay, stay. The light bulb above me buzzed, flickered. The TV sputtered, then filled with grainy footage of the very room I was in. And I wasn't alone. In the static, a figure stood in the corner. Tall, faceless, head tilted slightly, like it was studying me. When I looked back at the corner, in real life, nothing. But on the screen, the figure was closer and smiling. Would you smash the TV or keep watching to see what it wanted? The final checkout, I couldn't take it. I bolted from the room, sprinted for my car. But when I looked at the motel's sign, it no longer said vacancy. It said forever, and every door opened at once. Figures stepped out, pale, grinning, eyes hollow. Every room was occupied after all. They didn't chase me. They just stood in the doorways, whispering in unison. You checked in. You can't leave. I don't remember driving away. Don't remember the highway. Just remember arriving home, breathless, relieved, until I went to unlock my apartment. Hanging from my keychain was a brass motel key. Room 6. And etched into the metal fresher than before was a new word. Return. You've just checked into another nightmare with Halfway Dark, the home of night shift horror, urban legends, and cult-level scary stories. If you felt that chill, hit subscribe now, because once you're inside, the stories never let you leave. The Cabin on Black Pine Ridge. Have you ever been snowed in alone and realized the thing knocking on your door isn't human? I found out the hard way at a mountain cabin that was supposed to be a weekend getaway. Before we start, if you love Reddit horror stories, night shift encounters, and chilling tales you can't forget, subscribe to Halfway Dark. Trust me, you're going to want to see what happens next. I was checking the cabin's wood stove, trying to stay warm. The wind howled outside, rattling the shutters. Then came a knock. 3 slow, deliberate raps. I froze. I hadn't seen anyone come up the trail for hours, and the snow was deep. I peeked outside. Nothing. Just the endless white trees swaying in the dark. Then I heard it, whispering my name. Don't leave, don't go. Would you open the door or stay inside, hoping it goes away? If you love true night shift horror and stories that make your skin crawl, subscribe to Halfway Dark now. The darkness doesn't end here, and the next story might be closer than you think. Minutes later, I noticed footprints outside the cabin. Not human. Too large, too long, dragging across the snow. They stopped at the window, facing me. I backed away slowly. The whispering returned, softer now, almost affectionate. Why won't you come out? I grabbed a flashlight and swung it toward the forest. Shadows darted between the trees, but every time I blinked, the figures vanished. Would you follow the footprints or hide inside the cabin? I tried to call for help. No signal. The power flickered. The fireplace went out. I heard a scraping sound in the kitchen. The cabin door lock was opening from the inside. I ran to the bedroom, slamming the door. Then I saw it. A figure, tall and thin, completely black, without distinct features, leaning against the window, watching, waiting. I shouted. Nothing. The figure moved closer. The floorboards didn't creak, like it wasn't touching the ground. Would you confront it or barricade yourself and hope it leaves? Escalation 3. The whispering walls the next hour was unbearable. Whispers echoed from the walls. Names, memories I didn't recognize. You left me. Now you're here. My reflection in the mirror didn't match me. Its eyes were black. Its grin wide and cruel. Then I realized something. The whispers were coming from inside the cabin, but also inside my head. I couldn't tell if the cabin was haunted, or if I was losing my mind. Would you stay to figure it out, or try to escape into the snowstorm? As dawn approached, I tried to leave. The snow had shifted. Trails I'd followed before were gone. I ran to the trail, but the forest seemed endless. Every tree looked like it had someone hiding behind it. I glanced back at the cabin. Smoke curled from the chimney, but the door was wide open. A shadow appeared in the doorway. It didn't move, just watched. And then the wind carried a whisper. We'll be waiting. I sprinted down the trail, never looking back. But when I got to my car, I noticed a set of footprints leading up the roof of my car untouched, and no one else around. Would you ever return to that cabin? Or leave it abandoned forever? You've just survived another night shift horror story from Halfway Dark, home of Reddit-style true horror stories, urban legends, and chilling tales. If your heart is still racing, hit subscribe and join our growing cult of night shift horror fans. The next story might be closer than you think, lurking in the dark.